Right. Hello. Hello,
Good
Wade.
morning, Chan.
Good morning. Good morning. For the people that are not accustomed to you and do not know you, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and whatever else you want to tell us.
Yeah, my name is Wade Amos. I'm the branch chief for PS22, which supports the Office of Strategic Analysis and Communications. I'm also the acting product service line lead for Marshall Space Flight Center, as well as a grants officer. Those activities are basically responsible. I'm basically responsible for overseeing PS22 staff, um, coordinating their work assignments, and then from the PSL front, I'm responsible for overseeing Marshall's Space Flight Center's interaction with other centers, use of our product service line PSL contracts, mainly the program planning and control contract, which is an agency-wide use contract. And then also I support the uh, cooperative agreements for Marshall Space Flight Center for the Office of PS20, um, and handle all the processing all the cooperative agreements for that office.
Hey. So, in other words, he's a very busy man.
True,
Um,
true, true statement.
I'm gonna start off with a little bit of a little bit of a softball. What are your top three websites or blogs that you can't imagine your day without? And why are those three that you pick?
Yeah. So the first one is a Marshall Space Flight Center website called EPDW. It allows me to look up uh, various contracts and understand characteristics about them, who the contracting officer is, who the contract specialist is on that contract, the value of the contracts, period performance, things like that. That website also allows me to go in and look up what workflow was assigned to individuals within my organization so that I can better manage that workflow process. Um, Another website that I look at every day probably is acquisition.org, or I'm sorry, acquisition.gov, which is the FAR based uh, or it's the web-based version of the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, which guides most of pretty much all of our government contracting activities. So I need to reference it daily, pretty much to check policies and procedures. Um, and probably one more website that I look at every day is on our Office of Procurement website, the OWI-5, which is operating work instructions for procurement, which details uh, review of documents, who has to review and sign them, as well as dollar thresholds that drive those signature levels. Um, and the like. So those are probably the three main websites that I look at on a daily basis.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Do you in your spare time? I know you're a very busy man. In your spare time, do you read any like blogs that just allow you to unwind or things that you
Uh,
just do at home?
so I'm going to go old school here. So I read the Wall Street Journal every day, the paper copy of it. So it's my one of my guilty pleasures in life is eating lunch by myself and reading the Wall Street Journal, which kind of helps to just keep me up to date on the overall economy, as
Yeah.
well as what's going on in the business world that could impact things that we're doing as well as insights to government activities, things like shutdowns and things like that. So that's definitely a daily source of information for me that I look at every day.
Okay. I need to start getting into the Wall Street journal. I mean the Wall Street, man. Um, how do you like so you have a lot of things you have to manage, you have a lot of people you have to manage. There's constantly movement in the organization. How do you prevent burnout for you? How do you kind of mitigate the situation so that you are at the best of your ability every day?
That's a great question, and it's one that I think a lot of people probably struggle with. You don't have to necessarily be as busy as me to face burnout. One
Yeah.
of the ways that I do that is, and it's difficult on some days, but I try to establish pretty solid boundaries of my work day, when I start and when I stop. For instance, I generally log on about 6:30 in the morning, and some days I wind up working until 5:30 or 6, but most days I try to have a hard stop. If I do start at 6:30, I generally try to stop by 4.
Mhm.
And then I try to keep an active lifestyle. I ride bikes a lot, mountain biking, and gravel
Mhm.
biking. So I try to get out and get, get a couple rides in a week to burn out hopefully any stress that I've got, and just wear myself out a little bit.
Okay. That's good. And again, that just helps decompress from the days and like let the stress off of you. So that's good. Um, you
Yeah,
are
one of my hard one of my hard and fast rules is when I am actually out exercising or riding my bike. um I turn my notifications off, and on my
mm,
phone and things like that, so that even if a work call comes in, I won't see it until I get back. So I kind of cherish that time. It's valuable to me, and I don't want it interrupted with stuff that's going to take me away from what I'm trying to achieve by doing it.
that's big. Okay. You are in, I don't want to say control, but you are managing a lot of people, a lot of different people. I know personally that from just looking around the office that we have a lot of different personalities all melded together. What do you enjoy most about being a manager? But also, second part of that question, what do you find the hardest about it?
uh, yeah. So the good part, I guess, is kind of what you brought up initially there. The diverse personalities. There are a lot of personalities in the office, um, and that keeps it fresh. The it keeps it enjoyable. Everybody has different interests, different hobbies, and it's always interesting to hear what people are up to. And I've got an old saying that I picked up a long time ago, and it applies to a lot of things in life. And it's, if you find yourself as the smartest person in the room, it's time to find a new room. So everybody
Okay.
has different experiences, different approaches to doing things. Um, and it's real important not to think that, just because you've been in a job as long as you have, that you know everything, because you never did. I'll never know all of government procurement. It's an endless, it's an endless the supply of information that changes regularly and things like that. So, people sometimes know better than I do, on processes and procedures. So I'm always willing to listen to people and hear what their approach is to how they want to solve problems. Because sometimes it gives me insight into my own, with the way I do things, and think, well, that's a pretty good way of doing that. I'm going to try that myself. So, um, that diversity of personalities and experiences is, it keeps the job interesting, and it keeps me learning, which is I think crucial to anybody from growing stagnant and burning out
Mhm.
is continuing to learn. The flip side of that equation is what makes it hard is that exact same thing is there's a whole bunch of different personalities,
Yeah.
and managing people is not done in a vacuum, and it's not all one size fits all. So you have to take into account the hard part is taking into account everybody's personality, their backgrounds, and their experiences, and trying to make sure that they have meaningful work to do, and they're not burning out. And what's important to one person might not be important to another person. So it's really trying to figure out what motivates people, what interests them, and can I can use to encourage them to do a good job and excel in their position. Because as a supervisor, that's one of my jobs is to support my people and make them the best they can be. Set them up in a winning situation, before the game even starts. So that's challenging sometimes, but it's a good challenge.
Yeah. Staying right on the leadership question, we're gonna ride this wave for a little bit.
All right.
I've been in government acquisition for all of 2.5 months now. And I know just from that short amount of time how confusing it can get, how it can change instantly and quickly. So how do you go about keeping your team motivated in lieu of the ability, I mean, in lieu of how quickly it can change and how different the situations can become?
Yeah, and that's also a great question. It's and that's certainly a challenge. If you've been doing something for the same way for a couple of years and suddenly that changes, and you don't understand why it's changing, it can be really frustrating. So part of my job as a supervisor and leader is to be aware of the changes and not only be aware of them, but understand why they're changing, so that I can explain that to to the workforce and help them understand why we're changing and why we're doing what we're doing. It's not always it's I'm the first person to say that not all change is always necessary or good. Sometimes there are
Right.
changes that get pushed across to us that we have to implement, that we don't have any choice in the matter with. We might disagree with them, but they're being implemented from for a reason. And it, having people to when you understand why something is being done, why a change is being made, it makes it easier to accept that change.
Yeah.
So really just trying to understand the changes as best as I can so that I can inform the workforce of why we're making the change. And like I said, we might not always agree with it, but at least understanding it makes it a little bit easier to accept and live with. So that's probably the biggest challenge of that is an informational side of things, of just trying to myself stay on top of the changes and then understand why we're making those changes so that I can clearly and effectively communicate that to the workforce.
Yeah. I like that. I also liked what you said before about if you're the smartest person in the room, you probably need to change rooms
You need to
or
find a new
something along
room.
those lines. Yes, you need to find a new room.
Yep.
Um, so how do you go about creating an environment that fosters creative thinking that allows for like your employees to feel emboldened and feel empowered to speak up and be creative?
Yeah, and that's a really important part of the job. And part of that comes from so things that the way that I kind of approach that challenge. Uh, you've heard me say that, and it's my standard spiel that I give to everybody. There's no stupid questions. Um,
Yeah.
questions are asked depending on, it's all about perception of where you're standing at the time and where you've been. You may understand something completely, but the person asking the question may not have the experiences or the background that you do. So therefore, they're not going to have the same grasp of the concept or the question that they're asking you. So you can't expect everybody to know everything. Like I said, if you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to find a new room. So one of the ways that I try to encourage that is that, there are no dumb questions. There are no dumb approaches. I truly want to hear, if you think you have a better way to skin the cat, then I want to hear it. I might not agree with it, but I at least want to hear your idea. But because it might be a great idea. There might be parts of it that are a great idea. There might be, it might be just a bad idea that you don't know is a bad idea because you don't have the experience to understand why it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to make the people who you're supervising or working for you understand that there's no bad questions. There may be some wrong answers, but there are no bad questions. And fostering an environment of openness and and just asking questions, and whether that be to me or whether it be to one of their work peers. It's got to be an open environment that people aren't afraid to ask questions and aren't afraid to raise their hand, because again, as you've heard me say, if you have a question, and particularly if you're in a big meeting, there's probably 5 or 10 other people who have the same question. They're just afraid to raise their hand. And I
Yeah.
don't want my people to be the person that's afraid to raise their hand, because to me, that's where ideas get stifled and innovation gets stifled. People need to feel encouraged to speak openly and freely, and share their ideas. And it's all about fostering an environment that allows for that to occur.
Okay. Thank you for that. Last question, and I'm gonna try to figure out a good one for you. Um, when you were at the beginning of your career, what are some things you wish somebody would have told you, maybe good practices that you know now and that you wish you would have known before? Something like that.
Yeah. So one would be, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all small stuff. And that's that's a phrase that gets tossed out too much, I think, probably, but but there's some truth in it. Um, and again, it all goes back to perspective, and again, of, where you're standing. Um, you may have a customer that comes up to you that's in a 5 alarm fire emergency, and need your assistance. And it's, it's understanding, okay, there's a need there, but I'm not going to completely just freak out over it and stress myself out over it. I'm going to stop, take a breath. I'm going to, again, reassess what's being asked of me, and recognize that I have other priorities as well. And where does that go in the priority list? It's understanding what's truly important and what's not important. When I first started out, everything got brought to me was, oh my God, I gotta get this done. So they put this on my desk, and it's realizing, and it goes back to asking questions. And one of the key questions that I learned after a long period of being stressed out, that every time something hit my desk that had to be done right then, was asking the
Mhm.
person that giving it to me, hey, what's the deadline on this? When do you need this by?
Mhm.
Um, that would have saved me a lot of stress. Another thing is we all form opinions and ideas instantly upon meeting people. Um, and this goes outside of work, but it's something that I learned really well in the workforce, is because it forced me to deal with the diversity of different people. Is um, again, it's you might form an opinion about somebody, but you might need that person. So don't shut them out of your peer network. Don't don't keep them at arm's length at all time necessarily, because they could be somebody that you need to rely on. So be careful about burning bridges, and it's incumbent upon you to maintain relationships. And I've incumbent upon me, the workforce, to maintain relationships, um, despite our differences, because you never know when you're going to have to go leverage somebody else's knowledge or talents. And if you have a bad relationship with that person, it makes those conversations a lot more difficult.
Right.
And that's something that I learned fairly early on in my career too. Just because I may have fundamental disagreements with somebody on a personal level, you got to separate that out at the workforce level. And be willing to put the personalities aside to get the work done. And finally, the last one I would probably say is I wish earlier on that I'd found um, people who were further along in their career than I was, and truly, maybe not as a formal mentor, but an informal mentor. Um,
Hmm.
had hitched my wagon to them a little bit to say, hey, I do. What's your thoughts on this? How would you do this differently than what I'm doing? I would have saved a lot of time and a lot of mental anguish had I done that. So yeah, I kind of came up, I guess, through the school of hard knocks of you know I'm. I'm going to be the best at what I'm doing, and I'm putting my head down, and I'm bulldozing ahead, full steam ahead, and it's that's not necessarily the best approach. You can get there that way, but it's a lot harder. And finally, the last bit I would say is slow down, stop, and smell the roses. It's
Yeah.
work will always be there. It's not going anywhere. Um, take your leave, take vacation, and remember what's important in your life. It's when you die, your kids aren't going to your your kids they'll remember that you were at the office all the time. The people that you worked with, they're not going to remember that stuff. Your boss isn't going to, they'll say, yeah, he was a hard worker and stuff, but really the impact is on your family and on your kids, and those that are close to you outside of work. So take care, and make sure that you're uh, nourishing those relationships and taking care of them, and don't let work become an obstacle to those things, because
Right.
those are 1,000 times more important than work. Work will always be around you. You can always find a way to make a dime, but relationships are things. Really close relationships are things you should cherish, and those are what's most important in life.
Right. Wow. Wait, the philosopher.
So,
Work
so sorry to
smarter,
get
not
all
harder.
sorry to get all sappy and end on a on that note, but it really is
No, that was
truly
perfect.
important, and I've seen a lot of relationships fall apart because of people are, I gotta get this done for work. I gotta get this done for work. Work
Yeah.
work will still be there. It's
Work is
the
always
people
there.
the people that you're sacrificing to go do that work for, they may eventually grow tired of it, and they might not be there. And at the end of the day, would you rather have that person in your life, or would you rather have work? Well, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, I'd probably rather have that person in my life than work. So
Right. Yeah. Twice on Sunday. Yes. Yes. Work smarter, not harder. Wade, I
exactly,
want to thank
exactly.
you. I want to thank you for taking out the time to talk with me today. I feel like I've really gained a lot, and I hope everyone listening to this will feel the same way. Um, you dropped a lot of insights today. Speaking about that leave, I probably need to talk to you after I end this recording.
Sure thing, sure thing.
No, no, I'm joking. But thank you again. Thank you again. We're gonna end it here. Have a blessed one, everyone.
Thanks, you too, Chin, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this with you, and I hope nothing but the best for you and your future career. So.
Sir, thank you.